All right. So we are live. So welcome to episode 68 of the Lost and Found Bin. For a moment there, it was saying that I don't have. There's Dark Slayer. So I am live. We're live here. Wonderful, wonderful. For some reason, I am showing. Hey, Buster, what's going on? Welcome to episode 68, Mandela Effect and the Implicate Order. It's kind of heady stuff, but I think it's worth it. I appreciate everybody showing up here. Chick has yet to give me a ring, but I fear it was like last week. I am showing limited to no internet access, and yet I am able to speak with everyone. I'm assuming... hello everyone in the silly simulation. Mike Wise says, excellent. So I'm assuming everyone can hear me okay, and I am actually live. I know she had difficulties last week. If she can hear my voice, I understand. I show only one watching, but I'm seeing... is everybody able to see me live? Sounds fine. Okay, yeah, all right. Hey, Buster, can you see the screen okay? I just want to make sure that, hello, everyone. All right, wonderful. Okay, 16 watching. We're bouncing now. Okay, we're rolling. All right, perfect. Thanks, folks. Thanks, Buster. So, I know it's going to seem like we're going over well-worn territory, but I came across, we've talked about David Bohm before in passing, and that's page 8 of Gateway. And I'll mention the consciousness matrix one more time, and I'll mention David Bohm, which I've dipped out before, but we're going to talk a bit more about the implicate order, because I think it sounds very heady, but I've read 3 or 4 different articles and watched some videos, and now it's been about 2 years that we've talked about these kinds of subatomic and just curious ways in which the Mandela Effect / the synchronicity world works / the esoteric way in which we have qubits and all the whole thing, and we're just going to tie it together real quick here. And to kick it off, it says here, the consciousness matrix, the universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity, according to the theories of Carl Pribram, a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and David Bohm, a physicist at the University of London. The human mind is also a hologram which attunes itself to the universal hologram by medium of energy exchange, thereby deducing meaning and achieving the state which we call consciousness. Now, as we all know, and that's well-worn phrasing here at this point, I should know it almost by heart, and everyone else should too. And it's kind of the ethos and worldview of the channel, that the kind of holographic reality which sets us up and helps us better understand the Mandela Effect. But once we go beyond that and we start looking into figures like David Bohm, which is what we're doing this week, you start finding that the ideas that are talked about in Gateway, when we expand on those particular ideas, you start to find and understand something very curious, that all of these things tie together in such a harmonious way. You have basically a physicist at the University of London almost achieving a state of gnosis, and using it through the deductive logic that is modern scientism, which on its face seems somewhat contradictory. However, if you get into the works of David Bohm from a more esoteric point of view, like what we have here, you are dissolved consciousness in the implicate order. So, I'm probably going to butcher this, but the implicate order, more or less, ties perfectly to the parts of Gateway when it was talking about reality being like a mirror. And when they throw the mirror down on the ground, it shatters into different pieces, right? Large shards of pieces. However, each one of those pieces has the entirety of the reflection of what the mirror can hold within itself in each one of those shards. And the way it was described in Gateway, that's how reality is working. And the implicate order basically is that. The implicate order is saying that the entirety of all of reality, more or less, boils down to one one particle, one atom, one wave. The smallest denomination of reality and existence. Inside of it holds all of existence. Now, that may seem like a bit of a contradiction in terms, yet it makes such beautiful, harmonious sense if you've been on this expedition with us this long, because it starts to understand spooky action at a distance. It starts to understand the more esoteric sides of reality in terms of synchronicities and how, you could be talking about something and then suddenly it'll flash on your screen, or a bus will drive by and it'll have it in an advertisement. And you start seeing those numeric synchronicities just bounce up at you when you know you're on the right trail of something. Or as one of the videos that I put in here, it was talking about Edgar Allan Poe. He wrote this novel about this shipwreck. And within the shipwreck, there was a person, and he had a specific name, and I'm sorry it escapes me now. But they ended up having to eat one of the passengers. And that actually happened to a shipwreck 100 years later with the passengers. And then it also talked about another novel of a ship called the Titan that hit an iceberg and sunk in April. And I think it was on the starboard side that it actually sunk. Is Chick here? Ah, here we go. My equipment up. Chick is with us. At least I'm here now. My equipment was dead. Okay. The funny thing is, I was showing right up to this show, Chick. If you're listening now, call in whenever your stuff gets up. I was showing no internet connection right up to the show, and I was freaking out trying to retype in my password and connect. And I was terrified that it wasn't working well. So I'm hearing you. It's all over the place. This is happening and see, it's things like this. Though Chick and I and everyone in the chat here, top chat, darn it, I want live chat. Though everyone here, we're all maybe thousands of miles apart. We have different lives and different flavors of lifestyles and like the reader, we're on different continents. Yet we come together here through our modern scrying mirrors, and here we are. We're implicated in this broader conspiracy of life in the implicate order. And that everything is connected at the particle level and everything is connected at the broader level. And that in itself should give the roadmap to modern scientism, which I believe they've already charted that course. Of modern scientism to say, why is the quantum level, why does it have a certain set of rules, and yet the physics that we deal with every day when we bounce a basketball or we drive the car screaming down the street. Okay, let me see here what Chick says here. I tried to call. It says you aren't online. Yeah, that's the weird thing. Everyone here says, let me try to give you a call, Chick, and see if I can reach you. See, I'm seeing no internet connection as well, Chick. I'll try to give you a ring. Can everybody hear me out there? Hey, Buster, can you let me know? Can you hear me? Because I'm saying I see in Skype. Skype is telling me that Skype is telling me that yeah, it's strange, Chick. It's super strange. Skype is telling me I'm not online. Yeah, you hear me, reader? Okay, everybody can hear me. Yeah, Chick, it's telling me Skype is let me close Skype and let me try to open it again. It may be me. It may not be you, Chick. It might be me. And it's saying I have no connection. Oh, now it's saying I have a connection. Let me try to call. Hey, guys, you can tell this is live. I mean, we are a garage band. Okay, I'll try to call you now. Alright, I'm trying to call Chick now. It's now saying that we are... Chick?
Hello?
Is that you?
Yeah, that's me.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now that we've called... Okay, alright, I've plugged my headphones in. Now, everyone, I don't know... hey, Chick, can you tell me... can you say something real quick? Because the audio is kind of crazy.
Hello? 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect. Hey, everybody, is her audio okay with mine? Because I had to shut everything down and reopen it again. For some reason, I don't think it was her. I think it was my connection. Okay, you hear Chick? Is she balanced with me? Is everything sounding okay, guys? I want to make sure. Um, I want to make sure everything sounds loud and clear. Everything is balanced, Rob? Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, all right. I think it was on my side for some reason, and apparently you can shut things down now and still keep the connection, which is we learn something new every week with this new software, Chick. I got to tell you, at least I learn something new every week with this new software. So, how's it been going for you this week?
Um, it was kind of difficult this week. I don't know if it was shift pains or what it was, but I was definitely having a rough week. And I heard a couple of people, Mandela affected people that were also having a lot of aches and pains and problems like that, but it seemed to not be quite as synced up as before when we all had like heart pain and like indigestion and heartburn all at the same time. It seemed to be a little bit less uniform, but yeah, thankfully I feel good now. But I've been watching the Schumann resonance. It hasn't seemed to be crazy. I'm not really sure what the situation is because usually when I start feeling really bad, like in sequence with other Mandela affected people, we see geo shifts or we see major Schumann activity or we see something like that going on. But at the same time, I feel like there's been a lot of shifts because things have been very janky and strange, and my clocks are very confused. I have digital clocks and satellite clocks and analog clocks, and they're never able to keep to the same time ever.
Yeah, yeah, and that's something interesting about the Schumann resonance. There will be times that I don't think that we're dealing with one system here when we shift. So, we can get back everybody now that Chick is with us. We can get back. And actually we need to get back to the implicate order. And I'll get into that with you, Chick. But one thing I noticed this week, I had incredible headaches. I had a near panic attack. And I noticed there were no spikes like we had about a couple weeks ago when everybody was in, and it was a real synchronicity with those spikes. But one thing I did notice, a lot of astrology folks were saying that some kind of door is closing and that some kind of 12-year cycle is going to repeat, and it ends around September the 16th or something. Now, I don't know a lot about that part of the esoteric or the occult world, so I'll have to take their word for it. But they were saying something about Jupiter, of all things. Speaking of synchronicities, Jupiter itself is, I don't know, rising or descending, but Saturn is now coming into its own and it's waking up. And Saturn is the great, like, karma, like, doler. It doles out karma to people. And what it does, it's not good or bad, it just balances out things. And different channels were basically saying roughly the same thing. So Rob said he had a panic attack for several. Yeah, I have them on occasion, and I had one almost full blown this week. So something's going on, lots of headaches. But Chick, like I was saying, a lot of the astrology folks are saying that there's this big cycle dealing with Jupiter and Saturn, and they were also talking about Mercury, which has to do with communication and things like that, and. Yeah, Lionsgate portal opening. Yeah, and the peak was 8th of August. Thank you, thank you. I am not proficient, or I don't profess to understand any of that at all. However, it made me wonder, Chick, if there are things like this that actually could be in concert or trump, or excuse me, that's the wrong word. That triggers a lot of people, or could, overtake. I don't have a word. I used to always use that word. It could, it's much stronger than the usual barometers that we would use for the Mandela Effect / Schumann resonance shifting. And it's been very strange with this stuff like this. Yes, and the paranormal activity certainly has picked up. Chick and I think midweek we talked just briefly. All of my silverware was polished. Now, it sounds odd and it sounds very strange. So I don't know if it was paranormal or if it was a Mandela shift that I have silverware. It's all like silver plated or fake or whatever, but it was like Target kind of silverware. Don't judge me, but it was all like brand new. And when I opened the drawer at like 4 in the morning when I was getting up to get ready for work, it was like shining and gleaming, and it wasn't dull. And because I've had it for more than a decade, and it was just, it's small things like that that are just very odd and strange, chick. And I don't know. It's just weird.
It is, and that kind of fits in with things being far more new, as in, like, there are things that appear to be aged, but often things look a lot newer in this place. And I don't know if that's some kind of fault with the coding of reality or whoever's messing with reality or whatever's going on, that everything seems to, be manufactured pretty newly, even if it wasn't. And it ties in with photography and film and everything looking really new when it was from 100 years ago or even longer than 100 years ago. And I'm not really sure what the situation is with that, but I'm sure a lot of you have noticed, if you look carefully at the things in your house, that they either look different than they did before or they look newer than they did before, and not necessarily in a good way. It kind of looks like a newer, cheaper replacement for something that you had that was, old and sentimental and very special to you.
That's very interesting. So I'll start slowly weaving back in this idea from David Bohm from Gateway fame. This idea that I came to, or I saw a video on the implicate order. Now, as I was explaining to everybody, the implicate order is the idea that the smallest particle that's out there, and I know that they're starting to show some science out there. They're moving away from the atomic model like we knew it, like tightly packed molecules and tightly packed atoms with their electrons and neurons and protons and all the tons just running around each other in a tightly packed kind of marble thing, that it's moving away from that model to a more expansive model where an atom actually has lots and lots and lots of empty space. So where was I going with that? Yes. And with this model, what it talks about in the implicate order is that it ties in beautifully to Gateway. And it makes sense because it's from David Bohm mentioned in Gateway. And it's the idea is if you take like a mirror and you threw it down on the ground and it were to break, inside each shard of that mirror, you would still get the same image. So all of the same data, let's say, that makes up an image, is still inside each of those shards. There's nothing, whether it's a big mirror or a small mirror, it's still going to show the room. You see what I'm saying? Particularly at the right distance. It's going to show, if it's at a static distance, it will show the same thing. And it was talking about this version of reality and how reality at the smallest form in the implicate order, in the implicate universe, it still has all of those things. It's everything inside of the universe, like that shard of glass. It still has it. And I thought that was so interesting that the entirety of existence is still in one particle, the smallest particle, and yet all of existence is made up from an infinite number of particles. So I thought, wow, that dualistic thing comes back in to everything. And yet that would explain things like spooky action at a distance. All the quantum strangeness, quantum entanglement, all of those things, because all of those things then wouldn't be action at a distance. They would actually be inside of the smallest particle. And then finally, all of those particles put together gives you a broader mosaic of what was inside of the one particle. So they're almost mirrored reflections of that one central particle itself. And then suddenly you realize that not only are we all related at a deeper level in the substrata, we're all the same thing, right down to that one simple particle. And this even ties deeper to those deeper philosophies. If you go back to very, very basic kind of philosophy, and the idea of there is only one lamp, there is only one table, and everything else has been a copy of that. There's only one idea of a thing, a microphone, a lighter, a pair of glasses, and everything else is a copy of that thing. Isn't that interesting? I thought that idea was interesting, and it ties into Gateway. And I was watching the video that I included in the description about, I'll actually read out the name of the article because I put it at the very top here. It says here, actually I put Gateway at the very top. Synchronicity, what is synchronicity? How it works in a simulated universe. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, and what do you think about that idea?
Well, I think that, of course, that in itself is, the holographic principle, that the smallest part is actually exactly the same as the overall picture, except you can't, really zoom out in a holograph. It's kind of like a fractal. There's no way to zoom out completely and ever see the whole picture. But each, like you said, each little tiny part of it is actually exactly the same as every larger division. As you zoom out, it all follows the same pattern. And while I thought that was a very interesting, course of thought, I also, too, looking at the article, the David Bohm article, and about how when placed in plasma, I believe it's the electrons all act the same. I need to find that little part right here. Mm-hmm. That makes me think of the flow of consciousness that we're viewing here. We can see, and I know this may sound like wild, but to me it connects up really, really easily. We can see that the people who are from or either very accepting of the kind of Orion reality are all on the same page, even though they're not speaking to each other. And we can see that the Mandela affected people who, as you said earlier, live all over the world are all on the same page, even though we live nowhere near each other. And it makes me feel like we're not in a true holographic situation, because if we were, everything would be in sync with one consciousness, or with one kind of hive mind, or with one kind of, central situation as far as what direction things were actually moving within, not so much a plasma in our situation, but perhaps the conscious sea might be what you would say for, human beings. But to me, it explains the creepy, like the download stairs, the downloads that the mm-hmm. Orion people get. Mm-hmm. They all do it, but they don't even know it's happening, and they don't talk to each other about it. It's not something that's consciously planned among them, but it's something that's very much part of their reality. And instead of being involved in that, we're like witnesses to that. So to me, I'm just like, it can't be a true holographic reality in that sense, because we don't fit with their fractal pattern, or they don't fit with ours, whatever the situation is there. So I think we're in a strange situation where you have two pools of consciousness that aren't the same, that are directing people in two different directions, even though we're all living together in the same place. And I wonder, what the situation is with that. I wonder if perhaps the plasma substitute, or whatever the flow of our consciousness organically would be, is actually operating at a different, I don't know what the spectrum of difference would be. All I can observe is that it is obviously different from the other kind of, I don't want to say hive behavior, but very similar behaviors that we view in the other people that we, share the world with.
No, you're absolutely correct. And I like the visuals that you painted there for us with the fractals, and it's so, see, that's perfect. And I feel as if that's exactly it. And somehow we weren't weaved properly into the fractal, into the code. And it is indeed this thing, this one pattern that implicates all patterns, the implicate order. And it is a fractal, it is a kind of fractal reality in itself. And then that's why you also see in more occulted writings, they talk about the fractal world. They talk about mirrors and reflections and all of those kinds of things. And you can even see that in movies when they want to talk things that are occulted or put that across. It's always with these fractals, and that's so important. And yeah, man, I like that idea. And I also like the idea of being here in Orion, and it's not our natural habitat, so to speak. If you know, because I oftentimes I do now feel as if we are in some kind of prison is too strong. I'd say a zoo for humans or something, or human souls maybe. I like that idea of the cube in terms of explanations, but more importantly, I like the idea that we are out of step. We are out of sync, and even if it is, half a note, we're still off somewhat. And because of that, no matter what happens, and maybe this is part of it, with the shifting ways in which, ME or whatever it is you want to call it, is trying to integrate us into the system, and it's just not working. And we're still conscious after all this time. And perhaps too, that's why some of the numbers of the ME world has waned. Or at least, you had people that maybe could have rose to the surface for a moment. Orinians, maybe. But, what are we called? I don't know what would be the name of folks who are naturally from Sagittarius. But the folks that are here are locals, and they're part of the frequency here. They're part of the fractal, the natural fractal here. Maybe for a moment they were able to see it, and then it's gone. The sort of novelty of it is gone. And then for those of us left behind, we're still out of balance. Like someone mentioned Fibonacci, we're out of the 144. We're out of the 233. We're out of the 55. So as the fractal climbs those notes of the tablature, we can no longer keep up with that. And because of that, like you're talking about, that stare that they get, we're no longer seeing that kind of download. And then we're also able to unveil easier different kinds of systems that are in place. In a way, we've almost, by talking, you and I just now, and I'm looking in the live chat, and Velker Defang was bringing up about Egypt, like we were talking about last week, and talking about these cycles closing and everything with astronomy. And it says the gateway is marked by an alignment between the Earth and the star Sirius. As Sirius rises in the sky, Orion's belt directly aligns with the Pyramid of Giza, and from our perspective on Earth. So you have various systems I'm seeing, and the moment you master one, another comes into place, and you're suddenly off again. And I almost felt as if, like with Schumann and all of this a few weeks back, Chick, we were starting to get it. Like that Schumann spike that we did the video on, that it was like, whoa, okay, everyone felt that, and we knew it, and it was so profound, and there was no denying it. And now we're suddenly in a different part of summer. And because of that, we're in sort of the waning gibbous of summer. Immediately, we're suddenly like, there's this new system that takes hold, that's more powerful. It trumps the older system. I don't care if I'm triggering people. I don't mean to use it in that way. It's just my limited vocabulary on the fly right now. But it does. It's more powerful. And it's like almost as if now, okay, so astrology then moves in, or Fibonacci will move in, or the Schumann resonance will move in. And you have bobbing and weaving of all these different kinds of systems, and all of them are structures that different people master for different reasons, and they're relevant for different times and different situations. And yet, for some reason, they all are relevant. But you almost have to not be a part of the fractal in order to see all of it from kind of a unique perch that all of us MEs, particularly someone said Sagittarians, that we have.
I would agree with that. I'm like, if you're in the picture, it's very difficult to see it. But since we're not in the picture, even though somehow we're here, we can see these systems, and not just like, oh, I noticed, this or that, but have a strong emotional reaction to like, oh, wow, I see very deliberate systems going on here. And I don't mean, human systems of, commerce or things like that. I mean like how Orion works, and how it's planetary and flow of time, and how it's people, and how everything just operates on a very different wavelength. And even its sun it's not just unusual to us, it's not our sun. So of course you get a huge emotional response, because one of the most, probably the most primordial and ancient things that you could connect to is, the essence of like a little plant pushing up above the soil and reaching out towards that golden sun. And when that's taken away from you, I mean, that's, obviously a massive shock that's going to reverberate, within you, as to whatever depths of yourself you're currently aware of. I think it would reverberate all the way back, because I do believe that somehow we carry a history of, or maybe an essence of Sagittarius with us, even though we're here, even though these are Orion bodies, really. I mean, so it's not a DNA thing, because, my skeleton structure, like the body I'm sitting in right now, it for the most part, like, it matches the textbooks of the people who are here. And it puts me in a strange position where I'm like, I am something else. So I'm that flow of consciousness from somewhere else that doesn't fit here, but is allowed to exist, or was too strong to be integrated, eaten, or overthrown by the energy that's here. I'm just existing away here, but it's something deeper, and something that's far more, I don't know, far more poignant than just you're from Sagittarius and, you're in a Sagittarian body and you're an alien of some degree to this place. I'm like, no, this is like a soul or a consciousness thing. And that's why I really liked that idea there, in the article, about how particles react within a plasma, and that plasma, or that water, is a medium that carries something deeper than just an idea. And everybody understands that immediately and moves in sync. And I'm like, yeah, Orion has that, for its people and its things. And we have obviously, Sagittarius still exists in some way, maybe only within us, but maybe it still exists out there somewhere, and we're still somehow connected to that flow of consciousness.
Yeah, and I like that. A couple things there I want to pick up on is I like the flower to the sun, and because we don't have that, and we don't have the vitamin D, so to speak, we don't have the supplements going into our pores, so we're not able to take in the natural elements that we need to survive in a more profound way. So therefore, what we have is each other, and then we move within, because as conscious beings and as living beings, whether we're not even conscious of it, our number one objective is survival. And that's why choosing otherwise is so incredibly difficult. But because of that, that's why we're sent on this journey. If you go to a place where they've chopped down all the trees, you will be forced to brave the night, and brave those the animals, and move away from that place that you were once at, and seek out some other place with trees, or some other place with what it is you need to sustain yourself. And right now, we're not getting that naturally from the environment that we're purposely I think we've been placed here purposely, that we happen to be inhabiting. So I think that's very important, but that does free us up to kind of be able to look around, because if you're given that sunlight freely, immediately you just want to, kick your feet up on the beach, and, life is good, and the sun is yellow, and the water is blue, and the sand feels great and warm against your hands. You pick it up and everything is great. That's not the case here. The sun is it's white, and it's harsh. So, we leave the beach, and we go inside, and because you're inside, fortunately, we have these scrying mirrors, and we're able to talk to one another and able to interface with one another. So we start searching, and I don't know the purpose or why we're here, and why we've been sent to Orion, or whether or not this is a punishment or a blessing, because we don't know what we've left behind, but nonetheless, we're still here. So that's one important part of it too. And another is that, with all of these systems going back and forth, one thing that does seem to tie all of this together are really basic elements still that we don't escape, whether we're in Sagittarius or Orion, and that would be water. Water is one of the most base elements that every human being immediately knows, like fire. immediately. And there are so many. It is so deep, deep, deep down in our subconsciousness about water, and that's why water is central to every single religious practice out there. I mean, every single one of them has something to do with water. And that's because, not only because it's an element that we need for survival, not only is it, a common element that's all around us, or at least for most people, um, it has something to do with communication on a deeper scale. It has something to do with those occulted doorways that we can cross over into that another place. It's a way in which to cleanse yourself, and not obviously literally you can cleanse yourself with the water, but the idea of the bathtub, the idea of being dunked backwards, the idea of, all of those things, the baptisms and all of those things. There's either baptism by water, or there's baptism by fire. And naturally, you want to choose the water. The water is always a positive thing. The water means life and all of these other things. And yet still, whenever you have water and you don't have the sunlight to warm that water becomes a bit more hostile. So the communication, just like earlier, maybe it might become a bit more brittle. It might become a bit more difficult. And that may be because one of the trade-offs of not getting the downloads and being able to see that second sight, one half of that mystery school, like I talk about sometimes, one of those things that we have to give up is that we miss one of those elements. So though we have this second sight, we still are starving in many ways for that sunlight. And I don't know the allegory of what that sunlight truly means. I don't know. I don't have that story written out yet, where we can explain it the 5 different ways from Sunday. I don't have that. I just know that it's gone. And I don't know what that means other than it's the most base thing besides water. And that's a really good point that you picked up on there. And the way it's reacting, particularly here in Orion, the way the water reacts here. Also, too, water, just like, it's a reflective surface when it's calm. And that goes back to earlier 2012. We Died in 2012 series. The water was calm and we were able to see our reflection. And we were able to be a bit more decadent in terms of seeing our reflections and being able to see ourselves and be able to be, I forget the story where he falls in love with his own reflection and he's cursed with living forever. What story is that again?
Oh, it sounds similar to Narcissus. Like
Yeah.
he looked into the pool and saw himself, but I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a different story because the ending was different.
Yeah, Dorian Gray. That's it. Dorian Gray. And but yes, I think it was based off of that. Um, and there's that trade off there that our water, that rock has hit the water, so it's rippling out. So no more reflection for us. So again, that water was there, and again with the 2012 series, I immediately went to water, and there was a disruption in the water, in the symmetry of the water. And we now know they talk about using water as a memory system, like a computer memory system, leaving it and using it to. Water conducts, it's a conductor. I mean, I could just go on and on now that you talked about water.
It is so central to so many things because what we could do is like look at the other side of it is okay, you're looking into the pool of water, you see the reflection of like your face and your shoulders and your eyes, all these things, and a rock is dropped in, the Mandela effect, that shakes up your whole perception and shakes up all these questions, what's really going on. But the ripples, the distorted image, it makes you think and it makes you actually have a look at, well, is this closer to my true reflection? Because what's going on really? This body is mine. I was switched out into an Orion body. But it looks very similar, but the insides are all different. But looking at what's going on inside, like I'm a very head heavy person. Like some of us, our awareness is in different parts of our bodies, and my awareness is always like very much in my head. So to me, it's other people, it's in different places depending on who you are and what your outlook is. But for me, it's kind of like you're internally, you're not even the brain so much as the brain can situate the consciousness, but you are within that water within the brain. You are that quantum energy or that consciousness or that spirit that is able to interact with this world through being in this not medium of water, but it helps you to be here, so to speak. And I feel like that there's something so connected between consciousness and water because I mean the subconscious or the darker elements or whatever aren't those just referred to deep as deeper waters, and then the conscious mind that's more on front where one could say that it's almost like a holographic display of day and night is like the closer you go to the frontal lobes is more of the conscious mind that you deal with on a more surface level every day, what you're kind of thinking about, but also it's connected to higher thinking. And it's almost like you can use that water internally to go into these different parts of yourself to explore not just your own consciousness but what your consciousness inhabits. So the further inside of yourself you go, you get just as many questions and answers as going far 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 outside of yourself. And maybe that's the reversal of the system. Maybe in Sagittarius we were looking as far as we could outside of ourselves for answers, and maybe now in Orion, we're looking as far as we can inside for answers.
Totally. Oh, I totally agree, man. And that's a balance right there. I think you may have just figured out this whole thing in terms of what it is we're supposed to be doing, because that's really the only place that we seem to find anything. But I got to jump in here. Yeah, it's Oscar Wilde, and I'm tongue tied because it was the portrait of Dorian Gray, and now it's the picture of Dorian Gray. It doesn't even roll off the tongue right. I don't understand what.
Oh, there's three realities for that. There's the painting of Dorian Gray, the portrait of Dorian Gray, and the picture of Dorian Gray.
What
There's
is it?
three different realities for that.
Have you? Oh, I didn't know that. Oh wow, that is. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it. It is. Ah man, I hate discovering new Emmys now because it was portrait, man. I used to read when I was younger. I wanted to be a writer, so I would read and read and write and read and not unfortunately. I mean, naturally, I went the STEM route, but the dream version of me, is on the opposite side of my brain that the actual me lives on. But oh gosh, I do not want to be freaked out, and this one is a big one, chick. I'm looking at it right now. I remember, I can see the cover. It was the portrait of Dorian Gray.
Um,
Wow,
I, I think picture is like the least.
it's
I don't
ugly.
know. Yeah, it doesn't quite paint the same visuals in your mind, really.
Oh, it's so ugly. I can see why. And this is what I mean. It cheapens it. Emmy cheapens everything. It destroys and cheapens every. It's not good. God. Because portrait, because picture could be anything. It could be a photograph. It could be, a portrait is, it's an easel and someone is painting, and it's intelligent and it's classic, and it's gothic. It's all of those things. Whenever you have a portrait of someone, it's of nobility. You think of, all of those things when you hear the word portrait. Picture, those are things that I can do. I can do a picture. I mean, picture is cheap, and it then that, and I, whether or not I face the room, it's just cheap. It cheapens it, and that's what it is. It's like a cheap replacement.
It does feel, yeah, it's. I mean, I think the only way the Emmy could have gone worse is if it said the selfie of Dorian Gray,
Oh God. Oh my God. That or Dorian Gray WTF.
the Snapchat of Dorian Gray.
Dorian Gray, catch me on the gram.
There you go, Buster, the bad photocopy of
The
Dorian
bad
Gray.
photocopy of Dorian Gray. Or how
Oh,
about
oh,
this? Instead of Dorian Gray, it says, you know the deal, M.E. I don't get it, man. I don't get it.
Lanessa says someone's commenting about SMQ's name. I bet that they are again accusing you of being Dave Johnson, the bong ripping Christian.
Lanessa, people have been playing with that for so long. I've been called about, I would say at this point, maybe a dozen people I've been accused of being, and they've all been wrong. But my favorite is the bong ripping Christian of what was it again, chick? Because they did a video or something, or I don't know. What is it?
Dave Johnson, the bong ripping Christian.
Dave Johnson, then the bong, and oh, I love it.
And
Oh
I
my
was like, oh
god.
no, they found out SMQ's true identity.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my god, I'm a bong ripping Christian, and it's like, what? So, Lanessa, tell me what is my name this week, because please reveal. I'm very curious. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, because they've already this poor guy they already dragged out. So, I mean, I hope it's not the same guy, because it says here, WTF moment right now, SMQ. Someone commented your real name on my channel. Not sure why. Huh. Okay, whatever. Um, I'll check out your channel. I mean, you can say on live chat right here, because I mean, I've been called everything under the sun. I'm buffering like crazy too. Weird. Yeah, well, that goes back to Chick and I. We're having issues. Everyone seems to be having issues. It's all a distraction to keep us confused and away from the truth. Yeah, Linda, that's a good point. Oh, yeah. John Allred. No, I am not John Allred. No, I am not John Allred. Let's put it this way. The way that I set this up is that if anyone ever actually got my name right and I was quote unquote doxxed, that I'm such a weirdo at work that they would be like, yo, the UFO guy? Yeah, whatever. So Dave Johnson. Look, no, Lanessa, are they saying Dave Johnson, the bong ripping Christian? Chick, do you see in the live chat?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Lanessa, is that what they're saying my name is? That would be so awesome if that's still going around. I
That's
love
my
it.
favorite SMQ conspiracy ever.
I love it. I love it. I love it. It's like 10 different names. And one of them, they actually called out this guy and they tried to dox him, and it was really crappy. And so that name I won't repeat unless it's brought up. And my name isn't that guy's name. And I felt bad for him. So,
That'd be terrible to be a random person and be doxxed.
yes.
Like, and someone
Yes.
saying, oh, you're this YouTuber. And you're like, no, I'm not. What are
Right.
you talking about?
So, Linda, thank you very much. That I'm amazing. And Lanessa, talking Jesus and taking rips. I mean, what else is there? I mean, I don't know. No, I don't want to. I don't want Christians to feel uncomfortable. I don't know who this Dave Johnson was. It sounds to me he's definitely doesn't practice a traditional form of Christianity. And if there are Christians listening, I don't want them to feel uncomfortable. So I'm not laughing at that. And I am not Dave Johnson, and I'm not ripping bong, raging ripping bong hits or whatever the. Yeah, Dave Johnson, huh?
Jim Jones says you're the lead singer of ZZ Top.
I am
Confirmed.
not. But thank you. I'm sure ZZ Top. They have a massive bank account, so we all know SNQ is actually Elvis, and I have left the building, or I have left Sagittarius.
You have left Sagittarius, though. That's the whole point.
SMQ has left Sagittarius. Ain't that the truth? Um,
I'm kind of insulted that they didn't accuse me of being Dave Johnson, the bong ripping Christian,
I
because I'm like the Christian on the chat, like on the
Yeah,
channel.
totally. You're the Christian, so you should be the bong ripping Christian. Because I mean, at least you've got one box check mark there. So
So if he thinks that you're doing that, maybe he thinks that I'm you and you're me or something. I don't know how confused this
I,
guy is,
this
but
guy's way confused. Or no, SNQ's the singer for Roxy Music. Hey, that's a good band. They put out some good songs. So I don't know. I know we got off top. The picture of Dorian Gray is horrific, and I don't know, man. It's one of those where I just I wish I was drinking still, because I'd be like, I need a beer. And it was, gosh. Brian Ferry. I am not Brian Ferry. Paul, replaced Paul of the Beetle. No, no. The Polaroid of Dorian Gray. That's actually almost as good as some of the other. The Polaroid of Dorian Gray. It would be dated, actually. It'd be very retro to be the Polaroid. Oh my gosh. This is terrible. This is
This,
horrific.
I hope you've all got, it memorized because it's, if it changed the title, then it's definitely desiccating the works of
Hmm.
Oscar Wilde,
Could
which
you
is a crime
imagine?
unto itself. It's like his writing was so good, and now you're going to replace it with all kinds of nonsense, and probably he'll have written a book about the Kardashians next, and it's gonna be very tragic, and no one's gonna understand what we're even sad about outside of our own group.
Well, and one thing I will say about this thing with the picture of Dorian Gray, I wondered if the way Emmy works, and I know that every time that oh, thank you, Darren, for throwing in the chat there. Just a little tidbit, just a little bit to help with the website. I don't feel so alone when I listen. Hey, Chick, I really wish you would do more live streams. Oh, see, there you go, Chick. All of you are amazing people. Much love and respect. Thank you, Darren. You aren't alone. We all are in this together. All money will go to the website. Eventually, I will drop a ledger to Patreons, and eventually to live chatters of the costs that it will go to. And we're sort of at the end of the show, so I'll talk a little housekeeping for the hardcore folks. I will draw up a ledger to show some of the quotes that I've gotten for what the website will cost, and then some of the costs that are going to be associated with the monthly installments for payments that we're going to need for services on the cloud, and to rent a URL in the space and all the stuff. Right, the Moon Museum of Dorian Gray. I love it. And then what we'll do is we're going to make a killer chat where we all can hang out and talk about anything, anything we want, and do whatever we want, because it'll be ours. Um, Oh, and just in case anybody was wondering, we do have the Patreon open. Let me try to go ahead and click on that real quick to show you what it's looking like. This is our Patreon page. That's what it looks like. We've got 12 Patreons. We have 3 different levels, $2, $5, and $10. And again, on that page, it will show where all the money will go once I get myself organized. But we just got the page up this week. But even if you don't, just even staying here and liking and keeping us in the algorithm is important. So, just your attention, your attention and intention is what is helping. So, everything helps. So thank you very much. And but we will build this library, and I have this idea for the library that I don't want to share yet because I don't want anybody to steal it. But we're gonna have a live chat that will be probably monitored, but hopefully we can have it close to 24 hours a day. We're going to have a library, so we'll organize these documents and with icons, so you can use cool icons so you can move around and see where you're at and not get lost. And then what we're going to have, I forgot what the third. Oh, we'll have videos. We'll show different kinds of videos too. So 3 major elements, including whatever else we can come up with at the time. Oh, John, all right, thank you so much. And that's what it's going to be all about, folks. It's going to be a seriously awesome webpage. And it won't be limited to me. You want to talk cryptozoology, then do it. If you're in the chat and you want to talk to people, start a crypto chat. And you want to talk about something else, then, we'll have moderators. It's not anything goes because I don't want to get banned. But, yeah. So, sorry, Chick. I just wanted to get that out there and let people know what's going on.
No, for sure. An interesting question that I saw in the chat that I thought I would try to take on, even though it's a big question, is like, where do we think we go when we go to sleep? And my answer that I just want to put out there is I think that we don't have a consciousness limiter on us like we do when we're in our awake brainwave state. I think when we're in our awake brainwave state, you're able to, obviously we can take in a lot more than the average person because we're a lot more connected with, deja vus, Mandela effects, and some of us have 2 and 3 and 4 memories of the same things. And it just makes me think that when you go into sleep state, it's very possible that all of you on all of these timelines, in all of these doorway effect realities, and however far out your consciousness sprawls, and perhaps it is the entire uh, surface of reality. Maybe you stretch out that far. I mean, who knows? Because if these things are fractal, there's no end to them. But maybe the meeting point of all of those consciousnesses, the center of all that, is what you really are, and probably where you really go when you're asleep. And you can't, with no limiter on you, you can be in all places that you are in all these timelines at all time and be able to process that all at the same time, almost like every one of your lives is a different nerve ending and it all connects into the central brain or the central point or the central energy. And I think that that could be actually what a human being is, like on a consciousness level. But when we're awake, there's only so much information we can take in. You can't make 100 million different decisions at the same time about all these different timelines that you're in where you're doing different things. So you probably, like the 3D, three-dimensional person only sees exactly literally where they are, and perhaps the further you go up the dimensions, the more timelines you can be aware of concurrently. And anyway, that's my conspiracy theory and conjecture and the whole thing, is that I think that the human consciousness, perhaps like itself, is like a tree or a network of roots, or the nerve endings within a brain, and it just stretches out into reality as far as it can go. But like I said, there, for some reason we have a consciousness limiter that we can't get into that when we're awake, perhaps in states of hypnosis or altered brainwaves, but in the regular way you can't, because it would interfere with your everyday things that you do.
Yeah, I like that idea. Because really, what you're talking about is you're talking about, or at least to me, what I don't know. I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is that by doing something like what you're talking about, we're not being limited by the body, and that's a lot of times when people. If you're, a materialist or you're an atheist, you're thinking the limitations of the brain itself. And we know that the brain itself is outside of this body, and that we're just a hologram projecting ourselves into this bizarre, I don't know what this thing is, but yeah, I like that. And I like the idea of a root system moving through each bit of those fractals, and perhaps the fractals themselves is just a series of, it's sort of like an old-fashioned rope with all of the fibers, and each one of those fibers represent one of us. So it's really cool, and very, yeah, I like that idea a lot, actually. And the naturalness of it, of a root system, because it's all related. It's all related. And I've always said that too about this, is there's just not, it's not, nothing is by itself. I mean, the most weird and archaic thing is still related, whether it is a picture to a portrait. And no matter how depressed I am about it, it's still there, and it's still related. But not to be stuck on that, but going back to that for just a moment, it makes sense it would run through literature now. I mean, if it's going to start with the big stuff like the Bible, I mean, why not run through literature? And I always wondered that, if something like Oscar Wilde or Jack Kerouac would fall victim to this. Something, big authors, Arthur Miller or something like that. Massive authors just falling victim to this stuff. And I always wondered, I mean, if you're going to go Bible, you're pretty much going for the gauntlet.
Oh, absolutely. And it ties into, it goes full circle around to what we were talking about like at the start of the show, as far as I was involved, where things that were beautiful and old and had a lot of sentimental meaning to you, or had great depth and richness, whether it be an object, whether it be an heirloom, whether it be like, Oscar Wilde's writings, those things are like, there's holes appearing in them and they're being replaced with something new and cheap and not as good. Or in the case of literature, there's like word swaps that make it either not make sense or completely take the beauty out of it. And I'm sad to see his writings be, messed with, or just, have holes dissolved in it and get replaced with kind of, not as good a word choices, or perhaps even word choices that don't make sense. Because if you see what's happened to the Bible and how far the changes have gone and how crazy it's gotten, Like it talks the words, I do believe aliens and planets and all that appear in the King James Bible now. So there are things that have no business being in there. And it doesn't surprise me that other, that writing that would be important to people that they would look for comfort, they want to read again, it's going to have all kinds of nonsense in it, and it's going to be the picture of Dorian Gray or whatever other works have been, messed with. I haven't actually checked the titles of his other works. I'm a little bit afraid to, perhaps, but I think that,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, I don't know. It's something that we seem to have to face, and maybe it is to push us to look within and not without for answers.
That's a good point because even though I always thought of reading as something that was very solitary, very it made me self-reflect a lot. But again, I was looking to someone else, and whether it was Oscar Wilde or whoever, I was very, you're right. I can't rely on that anymore. And just like with a lot of Christians, when this thing first hit, it was very upsetting. So I can understand. Although it's at a completely different level when you're messing around with your faith. So, I just, oh God, this is a bummer, man. That's a real bummer. Ugh. So, oh man, it's been an hour. Okay. Anything else you wanna get out there, chick, for this week?
Yeah, I was just Googling to see if I could find any good links for the Bible changes for aliens and planets, but I just don't have time to like research right now at the last second of the show. I'm sorry, guys. I'll try and find some, and hopefully next time I do a live stream, I'll be able to share those with you. Or, if you want to Google yourself, please do. There's enormous changes with the Bible, and there's enormous changes with written works everywhere. Um, yeah, as far as everything else goes, hopefully you didn't have as terrible a week as I did, because I was in a incredible pain. But it's made me think a lot about what we are capable of, and how much we can heal and how fast we can heal. Because right now, I'm better than I was before I ended up in terrible pain. So there's definitely something going on organically or tissue wise, or who knows what's going on body change wise. It's something we'll have to continue to observe. But anyways, just to quickly say, take care of yourselves. Make sure and drink enough water, and don't panic if you have shift sickness or you're not feeling the best, because it's happening to all of us. Obviously, if you feel really seriously bad, get medical help. But I'm just saying, for the most part, it'll get bad and then it'll actually get better than it was before you even got sore. It seems to be the trend that I notice when I get a really bad shift pain or shift sickness, as it gets terrible, and then there's a massive improvement shortly afterwards.
Right. Yeah, that's great. That's really great. So there it is. All right, everyone. I can't top that. So I guess that's it for the week. Thank you very much. And yeah, if you look Chick's channel, just type in Chick Mandela Effect. That's the best way to find her channel. And if she does a stream on those Bible changes, particularly the alien ones, I'll check that out myself because I didn't know, and that sounds insane. But then again, we've got the Polaroid of Dorian Gray, so I'm going to end with that. So thank you, and have a great week, everyone.
Bye, everybody.